Good morning, everyone. I'm going to present you with information about the buying center and the buying situation. The buying center is a 40-year-old concept that is very useful for B2B marketers or supply chain managers. The buying center is an informal organization in which many employees within an organization play different roles in the decision-making process. Participants range from members who have a formal role in purchasing decisions to employees who will be using the new machine that is being ordered. These roles are characterized into 6 different buying roles. The initiator is the person who first suggests buying a product or service. The influencer is the person whose views influence other members of the buying center. The decider is the person who determines any part of the entire buying decision. The buyer handles the paperwork of the actual purchase, while the user is pretty self-explanatory. And lastly, we come to the gatekeeper, which controls the information or access to decision makers and influencers. And now we will go deeper into each of these roles. First we have the initiator. Initiators are people within the organization who first see the need for the product, whether they have the ability to make the final decision of what they want to buy or not. They get the ball rolling. Sometimes they initiate the purchase simply by notifying purchasing agents of what is needed. Next is the influencer. The influencer is the person whose views influence other members of the buying center. For example, an engineer may prefer a certain vendor's product platform and try to persuade others that it is the best choice. The decider is the person who makes the final purchasing decision. The decider might or might not be the purchasing manager. Further, deciders take into account the input of all of the other participants, such as the users, the influencers, and so forth. Sellers, of course, pay special attention to what deciders want. And the buyer is pretty much the person who handles the paperwork of the purchase. The users are the people and groups within the organization that actually use the product. Frequently, one or more users serve as an initiator in an effort to improve what they produce or how they produce it. And they certainly have the responsibility for implementing what is purchased. Users often have certain specifications in mind for products and how they want them to perform. An example of a user might be a professor at your school who wants to adopt an electronic book and integrate it into his or her online course. A gatekeeper is somebody who controls information or access, or both, to decision makers and influencers. An example of this would be, if you want to sell a product to a large company like Walmart, you can't just walk in the door of its corporate headquarters and demand to see a purchasing agent. You'll first have to get past a number of gatekeepers, or people who decide if and when you get access to members of the buying center. These are people such as buying assistants, personal assistants, and other individuals who have some say about which sellers are able to get a foot in the door. Next, I'm going to talk about organizational culture and B2B relationships briefly. A firm's culture often comprises a set of unspoken guidelines that employees share with one another through various work situations. In B2B contexts, there are a multitude of ways to enhance relationships. For example, blogs and social media can build awareness, provide search engine results, educate potential and existing clients about products or services. LinkedIn is an example of one of these platforms for B2B marketers. LinkedIn is mainly used for networking in the B2B marketplace. And Twitter is also valuable to B2B marketers because they can communicate with other businesses as often as they want. The buying situation consists of 3 types: new buys, modified rebuys, and straight rebuys. A great example to use for each of these situations is how colleges and universities develop relationships with some of their suppliers. Most universities negotiate with sports apparel manufacturers such as Nike, Adidas, Reebok to establish purchasing agreements for their sports teams. In a new buy situation, the customer purchases a good or service for the first time. For example, a small college might need to decide which apparel company to approach for a sponsorship. For smaller colleges, finding a company that will sponsor multiple sports teams is a priority. New Balance offers teams that sign long-term contracts custom fittings for their players' shoes. New Balance custom fits each player to achieve the best fit possible. And they do this by visiting the universities. In a modified rebuy, the buyer has purchased similar products in the past but has decided to change some specifications. An example could be Ohio State University's sports department might ask Nike to modify the specifications for its football cleats after noticing some improvements made to the shoes used by another university. Straight rebuys occur when the buyer simply buys additional units of products they have previously purchased. Many B2B purchases fall into this type. For example, sports teams need to repurchase a tremendous amount of equipment that is not covered by apparel sponsorships like tape and weights for the weight room. The constitution of the buying center, the culture of the organization, and the context of the buying situation all influence the B2B buying process in various ways. This means that sellers must always be aware of these factors if they want to be successful in sales. The internet has changed some elements of the B2B world, and the main outcome being the increasing frequency of electronic exchanges and auctions. And that concludes this presentation. Thank you, everybody.